What happens when a children's cartoon becomes too dangerous for television? In the 70s, studios flirted with chaos, blending innocence with rebellion and using animation to challenge the world. But some shows crossed invisible lines and vanished from screens. Governments panicked, parents protested, and networks censored history itself. Tonight, we dig into 12 forgotten 1970s cartoons that were banned for being far too controversial for their time. Number 12. Wait Till Your Father Gets Home, 1972. At first glance, this animated sitcom from Hanna-Barbera seemed harmless, a family comedy about middle-class suburbia. But beneath its laugh track simmered deep social commentary. The father, Harry, voiced by Tom Bosley, represented conservative paranoia, while his children embodied the rebellious counterculture of the era. Every episode mirrored the turbulence of America after the 60s, a generation war disguised as humor. The show shocked audiences by tackling topics television had avoided for years. From military corruption to civil rights protests to gender politics, it transformed the cartoon landscape into a reflection of cultural chaos. Parents expected lighthearted fun, but instead got biting satire aimed at everything from Nixon's policies to suburban hypocrisy. Networks began receiving angry letters accusing the show of spreading radical ideology and corrupting youth. Some affiliates refused to air entire episodes that mocked law enforcement or hinted at anti-war sentiment. Sponsors withdrew support, and conservative media labeled it dangerous propaganda wrapped in laughter. Behind the scenes, Hanna-Barbera was split. Some writers were thrilled to push boundaries, while executives feared being blacklisted. By its third season, the pressure mounted, and the network quietly canceled it. Years later, historians praised the show as television's first adult animated sitcom, paving the way for The Simpsons and Family Guy. But for decades it remained locked in archives, a casualty of political fear. It proved that animation could be more than entertainment. It could be rebellion. Number 11. The Groovy Ghoulies, 1971. The Groovy Ghoulies began as a musical monster comedy for children created by Filmation, the same studio behind He-Man and Fat Albert. It introduced a spooky band of friendly monsters performing parody rock songs inside a haunted castle. What could possibly go wrong? Beneath its goofy charm lay subversive humor. Each monster reflected real-world stereotypes and cultural anxieties. Dracula was a fading aristocrat. Frankenstein's monster symbolized misunderstood youth, and the Wolfman represented the wild side of human nature. The satire was subtle, yet sharp. When networks realized how cleverly it mocked conformity and authority, they grew nervous. Then came the problem. One Halloween special featured a musical number with lyrics about breaking rules and overthrowing control. Parents' groups interpreted it as a message to question authority during a time of student riots and civil unrest. Local broadcasters banned the episode, and conservative newspapers demanded it be pulled from rotation. Filmation executives were blindsided. They had built the show as harmless fun, but the era's paranoia turned every joke into a possible political statement. International networks quickly followed suit, and episodes vanished from syndication lists. Behind the laughter lay a creative rebellion. The animators included counterculture artists who had worked on underground comics and psychedelic art. Their influence gave the show its trippy style and hidden meanings. The backlash destroyed its commercial future, but made it a cult favorite decades later among collectors and historians. Today, fragments of banned episodes survive only through fan restorations online. The Groovy Ghoulies remains a relic of a time when even dancing cartoon monsters were considered dangerous symbols of rebellion. Number 10. Fantastic Planet, 1973. Though technically a French-Czech animated film rather than a Saturday morning series, Fantastic Planet became one of the most controversial animated works of the 70s. Directed by René Laloux, it portrayed humans kept as pets and sometimes exterminated by towering blue alien overlords called drags. Its surreal political imagery struck a nerve during the height of Cold War paranoia. Audiences immediately saw the metaphor. To some, the drags represented authoritarian regimes. To others, colonial powers or capitalist control. No matter the interpretation, everyone agreed this was not a film for children. Governments responded quickly. In Eastern Europe, censors banned it as destabilizing propaganda. In the West, conservative groups protested its violent, rebellious themes, and several American cities pulled screenings after parents complained their children had nightmares. Its creation had been political from the start. During the Soviet invasion of Czechoslovakia, animators were forced to smuggle artwork out of the studio, with several working in secret to avoid government interference. Keeping the film alive was, in itself, an act of quiet defiance. Despite bans, Fantastic Planet won the Grand Prix at Cannes and became a cult favorite among students and underground artists. It wasn't censored for being strange, it was censored because it dared to suggest that oppressed people eventually fight back. Number 9. The Fantastic Four. 1978. Marvel's iconic superhero team returned to television in a Saturday morning cartoon that should have been a hit. But this time, something was off. Instead of their beloved ally, the Human Torch, the show introduced a talking robot named Herbie, replacing him entirely. Audiences were confused, but few knew the strange truth behind the switch. Network executives had banned the Human Torch. Rumors spread that the character had been pulled because children might try to set themselves on fire, imitating his famous flame-on catchphrase. In truth, it was more complicated. Legal disputes over the film rights to the Human Torch made his appearance risky, so the studio quietly erased him from the show and invented Herbie to fill the void. But censorship ran deeper. Several early episodes contained Cold War themes and depictions of nuclear experimentation that were considered too sensitive for children's television. One storyline involving a villain with atomic powers was scrapped mid-production. Government advisors reportedly warned networks against airing imagery linked to radiation or warfare. Behind the scenes, the creative team grew frustrated. Veteran Marvel writer Stan Lee called the censorship ridiculous, but the network refused to bend. When the series finally aired, fans rejected it, accusing Marvel of selling out its own characters. Despite its failure, the series influenced later shows like Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, which learned to balance action with family-friendly tone. The banned Human Torch episodes remain a myth among animation collectors, whispered about as the lost flame of Marvel's strangest censorship story. It proved that even superheroes could be extinguished by fear. Number 8. Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. 1972. When Filmation launched Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, it aimed to blend moral lessons with urban storytelling. It was praised as educational, showing children from disadvantaged neighborhoods finding hope through friendship. But not everyone was comfortable with its honesty. The show portrayed poverty, violence, and racial inequality in ways rarely seen in cartoons. Some episodes addressed drug abuse, gang pressure, and corrupt authority figures using street slang and realistic scenarios. Parents and network censors panicked, claiming it was too dark, too political, and too honest for Saturday mornings. In several states, broadcasters refused to air certain episodes entirely. One banned storyline involved police harassment and racial profiling themes that television executives labeled inflammatory. Religious organizations protested the show's gritty tone, arguing that it glorified disobedience rather than teaching virtue. Behind the curtain, Filmation fought constantly with CBS over creative control. Writers wanted to confront issues kids actually faced, while executives demanded safer scripts. Bill Cosby defended his team, insisting the show was a mirror to society. The tension escalated until multiple episodes were shelved permanently, never broadcast again. Years later, the surviving episodes became cultural artifacts, showing that animation could educate as well as entertain. Despite its controversy, Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids paved the way for social realism in cartoons, inspiring later works like The Proud Family and Hey Arnold. It was banned in parts of America, not because it was wrong, but because it was real. Number 7. Star Trek, the Animated Series. 1973. After NBC canceled the live action, Star Trek fans refused to let it die. So Filmation revived it as an animated series, bringing back most of the original cast. What followed was one of the boldest and most misunderstood sci-fi experiments in television history. While marketed as a children's show, it carried adult-level philosophy and moral tension. Episodes explored war ethics, alien genocide, and the moral cost of technology. In one infamous episode, Captain Kirk faces a godlike being who questions humanity's right to exist. Parents expecting space adventures for kids instead found philosophical debates on existence itself. The controversy hit hardest abroad. British and Australian broadcasters banned certain episodes, citing disturbing imagery and complex moral content. One episode showing an alien extinction event drew comparisons to nuclear war and was pulled from reruns. Behind the scenes, production faced chaos. Filmation used limited animation to cut costs, leading to eerie, stiff movement that heightened the show's strange tone. Writers like D.C. Fontana and Larry Niven pushed the limits of storytelling, but network censors redlined half their scripts. Despite bans and poor ratings, the series later won a Daytime Emmy and gained cult status as the bridge between the original and modern Star Trek. What once scared censors became sacred to fans. Star Trek. The animated series proved that ideas, not violence, can be too powerful for children's television. Number 6. The Jackson 5, 1971. When Rankin Bass produced the Jackson 5, it was meant to celebrate the world's most famous pop group. Bright colors, funky music, and slick animation promised joy and energy for Saturday mornings. But what began as a cheerful tribute soon faced cultural backlash and political suspicion. The show followed animated versions of the real-life Jackson brothers traveling the world, performing and solving problems through music. Yet behind its lively beat lay coded messages about race and youth empowerment during an era of racial unrest. Episodes depicted the brothers confronting prejudice, injustice, and greed in ways many adults found uncomfortably honest. Television executives quickly intervened. Certain episodes addressing racism were edited or pulled from rotation. One storyline featuring a villain exploiting African musicians was banned outright in parts of the southern United States. Critics accused the show of encouraging rebellion and anti-establishment sentiment. Internationally, some countries viewed it as an American export promoting Western influence through pop culture and banned it for political reasons. Behind the scenes, tensions grew between the Jackson family and producers. The brothers had no creative control, while voice actors imitated their likenesses. When the family learned certain jokes had racial undertones, they publicly distanced themselves. ABC panicked and began cutting entire scenes to avoid controversy. Despite the censorship, the Jackson 5 became a cultural time capsule, mixing music history with hidden social commentary. Today, it stands as an early example of animation confronting issues of race identity and artistic freedom. It was banned not because of violence or fear, but because it sang truths too loud for comfort. Number 5. The Mighty Heroes, 1971. Created by Ralph Bakshi for Terrytoons. The Mighty Heroes was a wild parody of superhero culture before parody was even fashionable. The show featured 5 bumbling heroes: Rope Man, Strong Man, Tornado Man, Cuckoo Man, and Diaper Man, constantly saving the day through incompetence and absurdity. Audiences adored its surreal humor and bright design, but network executives soon found the show too chaotic and subversive. Beneath the laughs lay sharp satire mocking military authority and American nationalism. In several episodes, the heroes caused more destruction than the villains, turning the series into a critique of hero worship and state control. Some parents complained that the show encouraged disrespect for authority figures. Others believed its slapstick violence crossed moral lines. When an episode featured a villain resembling a military general demanding blind loyalty, the backlash exploded. The episode was immediately banned and the series canceled before its planned second season. Behind the scenes, Ralph Bakshi clashed with the network over censorship. He wanted to blend humor with political satire inspired by underground comics. Executives demanded family-friendly simplicity. When Bakshi refused to compromise, he left the project and later created the even more controversial Fritz the Cat. The Mighty Heroes became a cult artifact rediscovered decades later by animation historians. Its banned episodes circulate in private collections, its legacy undeniable. It showed that even absurd comedy could scare networks when it held a mirror to power. Number 4. Watership Down, 1978. Based on Richard Adams's haunting novel, Watership Down was no ordinary cartoon. It told the story of rabbits fleeing their doomed warren, seeking freedom in a violent, indifferent world. The animation was lush, poetic, and brutal. When it premiered, children expecting a gentle animal adventure were traumatized. The film depicted graphic scenes of blood, death, and despair. British parents complained in record numbers, and schools banned screenings. Some theaters refused to show it, labeling it psychological cruelty disguised as a family film. Censors debated cutting entire sequences showing predators and warfare among the rabbits. But director Martin Rosen refused, arguing the story's violence was metaphorical, a reflection on survival and tyranny. Critics praised its artistry, yet networks panicked, fearing backlash. It was banned or heavily restricted in several countries, including Norway and Germany, for its disturbing imagery. Behind the scenes, the production faced production chaos. Financing collapsed midway, forcing animators to work unpaid for months. The violence that horrified audiences mirrored their creative struggle. Animators later revealed how the censorship debate nearly destroyed their careers. Over time, Watership Down gained recognition as one of the greatest animated films ever made. It transcended the children's label, becoming a dark allegory for war and freedom. It was banned not for what it showed, but for daring to tell the truth about life and death through the eyes of innocence. Number 3. Fritz the Cat, 1972. When Ralph Bakshi unleashed Fritz the Cat, the animation world changed forever. It was marketed as an underground sensation based on Robert Crumb's infamous comic strip and became the first animated film to receive an X rating in the United States. But that rating was both its badge of honor and its death sentence. Fritz was a wild-eyed college dropout exploring corruption, greed, and rebellion in a chaotic urban jungle. Through anthropomorphic animals, Bakshi exposed the ugly underbelly of the counterculture movement, showing hypocrisy on both sides of politics. It wasn't just a cartoon. It was social commentary dripping with satire and grit. The film's sharp criticism of American politics and race relations sparked outrage. Religious organizations and moral watchdogs condemned it, calling it a dangerous influence on youth. Major cities banned the film outright. Some theaters were raided mid-screening. Internationally, countries like Britain and Australia refused distribution, citing moral indecency. Behind the scenes, chaos ruled. Robert Crumb disowned the adaptation, furious over how his creation was handled. Bakshi received death threats from extremist groups. Distributors panicked as protests erupted outside cinemas. Yet, despite being banned and attacked, Fritz the Cat became a box office hit in underground circuits and changed animation forever. Its legacy is undeniable. Fritz opened the door for adult animation and inspired later cult works from heavy metal to South Park. It was censored because it dared to show the world as it truly was not, as censors wished it to be. Fritz the Cat wasn't banned for its flaws. It was banned because it was honest. Number 2. The 9 Lives of Fritz the Cat, 1974. After the chaos of the first film, producers couldn't resist a sequel. But Ralph Bakshi walked away. Without his creative control, the 9 Lives of Fritz the Cat pushed boundaries even further and ended up banned in more places than its predecessor. The film followed Fritz through 9 surreal vignettes, each representing a different alternate life or moral failure. It mocked war politicians and society's moral decay with biting cynicism. In one sequence, Fritz becomes a soldier in a dystopian nightmare, parodying the Vietnam War with grotesque imagery and hopeless humor. Censors exploded with fury. Networks refused to advertise the film. Several European nations, including Ireland and Norway, banned it immediately, citing political blasphemy and extreme imagery. Even in the United States, many theaters refused to screen it, fearing legal retaliation from watchdog groups. Production itself was a battlefield. The animation studio faced repeated bomb threats and boycotts. Several animators worked under pseudonyms to avoid blacklisting. The film's producer, Steve Krantz, openly defied critics, saying censorship proved its point. Despite being buried by controversy, the sequel became a whispered legend of 1970s counterculture. Critics called it disjointed but daring. Underground fans saw it as prophetic, foretelling the decline of idealism after the 60s. The 9 Lives of Fritz the Cat was banned because it refused to give hope in a world that demanded illusions. Its darkness made it too real. Number 1. Animal Farm, 1954, reissued 1972. When George Orwell's allegorical masterpiece Animal Farm was reissued as an animated film in the early 70s, it was intended for a new generation. But Cold War politics turned it into one of the most heavily censored animations ever made. Originally produced in Britain with covert CIA funding, the film turned Orwell's warning about totalitarianism into anti-Soviet propaganda. When the truth emerged in the 70s after the Watergate era of distrust, many countries banned its re-release. Governments saw it as political manipulation disguised as art. The reissue added darker sequences, including the infamous ending where pigs and humans become indistinguishable, representing corruption in all governments. Some broadcasters in Eastern Europe called it capitalist propaganda, while others in the West called it anti-establishment rebellion. Both sides banned it. Behind the scenes, animators revealed they were pressured by intelligence agencies during production to alter Orwell's original message. The revelation stunned the public. Critics accused studios of turning literature into weaponry. Distributors quietly withdrew the film fearing scandal. Yet in time, Animal Farm became recognized as one of the boldest political animations ever created. Its 1970s resurgence showed how animation could shape ideology and how censorship is never about protection but control. It was banned not for lying, but for revealing too much truth. The 70s proved that cartoons could terrify censors more than horror films. Beneath their bright colors and laughter hid questions about war, injustice, freedom, and fear. Some vanished, while others survived in fragments, whispering rebellion through ink and sound. Which banned cartoon do you think deserves a comeback? Like, share, and subscribe for more forgotten history revealed through animation.